On July 9, 2008, Canadian missionaries John and Eloise Bergen were attacked in their home in Kitale, Kenya. They had to be flown from Kitale to a hospital in the capital, Nairobi. The pilot who flew that plane was Ryan Unger, a missionary pilot for Mission Aviation Fellowship of Canada. Founded by 3 Christian pilots after World War II, Mission Aviation Fellowship, or MAF, combines flight and faith to help people in remote areas of the world. Mark Outerbridge is president and CEO of MAF Canada.
Yes, MAF started in 2 places concurrently just after World War II, Great Britain and the United States. And Great Britain started a program in East Africa, and MAF US started one in Mexico. Canadians started to work with MAF, primarily the US, in the late 60s. And by the time the early 70s came around, there were enough of them to warrant a dedicated office here in Canada.
In 1946, Betty Green made the first MAF flight bringing missionaries to a remote part of Mexico. Today, MAF serves over 30 countries around the world. The Canadian branch alone has over 45 families in 19 countries.
United Nations announced, I think it was about this time last year, that we just passed the point where over 50% of the world's population lived in cities. And you mentioned Papua New Guinea. It's one of the most difficult places in the world to fly. Any aviator will tell you that. There's still a lot of people who are isolated, who haven't heard the gospel, who are not getting the physical help that they need, and MAF is a key to helping those people.
Understandably, Outerbridge says, many missionaries and NGOs stay away from remote areas because of safety and lack of communication.
We make an effort to make a safe place, a compound. Some places that's the only way to do it. Other places people can live in the community. So they go and they learn the language. They get a handoff from another family that's there before and knows where to go, where not to go. There are local staff that we hire, and they are very helpful in training our people and just even making them part of the community.
Living and flying in some of the most remote parts of the world comes with a hefty price tag. Missionaries share the responsibility with MAF of raising money.
Typically, a family is $6,000 a month, and a single person's $4,000 a month. Their outgoing costs, or depending on where they're going, maybe around between $25,000 and $50,000. They could be as high as that for a very remote location with a big family.
Right. Beth, I was wondering if both the cost and commitment, says Outerbridge, are not for the faint of heart. Missionaries must commit to a 3 to 4 year term with a break in between.
So they have to move their family and their household and what they can carry with the limited amount of baggage that they can bring, and then make a life that's just passable. It's not even, it's not luxurious, it's perhaps not even comfortable. But they do that because they're dedicated to this work and to God.
In your church, they want a fan.
And that's where Dave and Robin Metcalfe come in. The couple, originally from Mount Forest, Ontario, are missionaries in Papua New Guinea.
And I just felt a calling from God that he was tapping me on the shoulder to tell Dave, next time you're in Guelph, which is where the Canadian office is, that you should stop in and see if they can use you.
Working as a pilot for Air Canada, Dave Metcalfe learned about Mission Aviation Fellowship after seeing their booth at an air show.
At a point in our life, we decided that we need to do more than just work for money. Our kids are grown up and they're gone, left the house, and both of them involved to some degree in ministry. And Mom and Dad were thinking, maybe we could do something too.
When they retired, the Metcalfes headed for Papua New Guinea to provide a link between badly needed medical services and people who are often completely isolated in what nationals call the bush.
My job primarily was to operate the aircraft, fly the aircraft in and out of the bush stations. And a lot of it actually had to do with medical evacuations, bringing pastors in and out, certainly material support to the communities. Many of these communities really have no other service in that part of the world.
So we're flying along, and I had this feeling that it was familiar, and I suddenly thought, and I'm literally like this, thinking it looks like the head of broccoli. The bush is that dense.
MAF also helps missionaries and NGOs already in Papua New Guinea.
Approximately 1,200 different missions are supported by Mission Aviation Fellowship. Some of them are agricultural, some of them are educational. Many of them obviously are Christian. We don't limit it to that though, because we're there to help the people. If somebody can bring in a mission that helps in a particular health situation, for example, with AIDS, we'll work with anybody to help get them in there.
Papua New Guinea is located in the eastern half of the island of New Guinea, east of Indonesia. It's known as one of the world's least explored places and most diverse.
You're working in an environment where there's 850 distinct languages. So if you can imagine going from one tribe to another tribe, the reason of there are so many different languages has to do with the geography of the country once again. They don't communicate, they can't communicate effectively, the transportation link isn't there, so they have developed separately.
Conditions on the ground can be challenging.
You're in the tropics and it's very hot. It'd be nothing to wake up to 98% humidity and 98 degrees basically. So it took quite an adjustment period.
A runway slope, plus or minus 2%. Legally, that is the law. In Papua New Guinea, we're flying in slopes, if you can imagine, of up to 15% or more, okay, which represents a tremendous challenge for flying a light aircraft. Nice paved runway outside here, you don't have that down there. You have basically a strip hacked out of the bush by nationals who want you in there.
But the couple says the challenges they faced aren't without rewards.
You know, you sit there, you're sweltering, you think, boy, my skin's crawling because of the heat, and maybe the weather's not that good. But you know, when you fly that person in that's had that medevac, and you get them to the hospital, and you might even have to drive the van to get them to the hospital at the end of the day, it's rewarding in of itself.
Working in a country that many people have never even heard of, the METCALFes believe Canadians have a lot to learn about relationships from the people of Papua New Guinea.
Relationships are really more difficult in North America. I was very surprised by that. You have a bit of a culture shock when you first leave your country and go into a different culture, but you also have a reverse culture shock when you come back to Canada.
Though the pilots often get the glory, Dave Metcalfe says, Mission Aviation Fellowship couldn't function without its missionaries who don't fly.
There are mechanics, there are obviously spouses to the mechanics. There's teachers. We have teachers at MEF that go overseas and help train the children of not only nationals but also the expatriate people involved with the mission. So we have all kinds of different elements of support.
And even with the MAF team, Dave Metcalfe says his most important supporter is his wife.
Basically, I considered her, when we're over in that mission, to be my life support system, and I don't think I could have functioned properly without her. Just on the everyday little things, though, even getting up with me at 5:30 in the morning.
The Metcalfes say the experience has changed both their lives and their views on what's really important.
Money comes and goes, and that's quite evident now, whereas these experiences, like, it's a great adventure. You know, it's not easy, but it's something that you'll never forget, and you'll have stories for the rest of your life.
You can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but that will not compensate for that visible difference you can make in a community that will have eternal consequences.
The Metcalfes hope to return to Papua New Guinea soon. They're anxious to continue in the work they describe as the hands, feet, and wings of Christ. In Waterloo, Ontario, I'm Bridget Antwi for 100 Huntley Street.